Okay, now that we have looked at our first step of supply and demand as price being a determinant of each individual item, our second step is to look at the non-price determinants or shifters of demand. So once again, we'll have our same price and quantity on our y-axis and our x-axis. However, this time we're going to have our demand curve. So first step is single items. Second step is the demand for all those items throughout the economy. So those non-price determinants are going to be listed as an acronym called PIPER. So that includes our preference, our income, the population, expectations, elasticity, related goods, which are substitutes, which are positive, and complements, which are inverse. So now, and remember, you can just pause this to copy these down if you need to do that. So the first thing is preference. Preference means simply that in our economy, people would have a preference. If we're still looking at Pepsi, this is all Pepsi in the economy. So if we're looking at all the Pepsi in the economy, say a TV commercial in the Super Bowl makes everyone's preference increase, then demand itself would increase. In America, or in economics, if our income increases as a nation, say we get a tax cut or GDP is going up, national income is going up, then demand will go up. Simply when we have demand, remember the definition of demand means willing and able. Willing means you want it, able means you have the money to buy it. So demand by definition means we get more ability, more income. As population increases or decreases, our demand can increase simply by there being more people. Expectations have an inverse relationship. If I expect gas to go up by $1 a gallon tomorrow, then my demand for gas would increase today. If I expect gas to decrease tomorrow, then my demand would increase today. So we have expectations as consumers. Elasticity simply means that we stretch our demand. If something becomes too expensive, say gas goes from $3 to $4 to $5, eventually that elasticity will break and we will no longer have any demand for it. So elasticity of demand means that we do have a limit to which we would spend on something before we don't buy it anymore. Related goods, sorry, that's a G. Related goods are simply things that are substitutes and complements. So whenever we go to buy an item, say we want to go in the drive-thru and get some tacos. Steak tacos are $5. Chicken tacos are $3. We wanted tacos, but the steak tacos are expensive, so as the price goes up of one, the demand for the other, or the substitute, would go up. So if the price of steak tacos goes up, the demand for chicken tacos would go up. The other item we have are called complements. So that means as the price of peanut butter goes up, the demand for jelly would go down because it's what we call a complementary good. So now let's look at what we do when we shift. Since these are called our shifters, our non-price determinants means that they shift demand. So earlier what we saw with demand itself, we could have what's called a movement. So at $6, say people at $6 are at point A on the curve, and they're only demanding two of these items at point A. So now all of a sudden, say the price goes to point B, $4. So I go over and down, and now I have point B, and I have a movement along the curve. I went from point A to point B. So this right here is what we call a movement on the curve. We had a change in quantity demanded. So this is what we call a movement. Just like the PPC, anytime you stay on the curve, it's called a movement. Now here, what we're looking at is a shift. So let's say that a big TV commercial works during the Super Bowl and preference for all the Pepsi in America changes. It increases. So remember, we increase from 0 to 10 to the right, and increase from 0 to 10 up. So we're going to go to the right. So preference increased, demand increased. So I'm simply going to draw a new demand curve and label it D1 and indicate with an arrow that we have a shift to the right or an increase. Now, let's say that our income goes down. Income decreases. So we'd have our price and our quantity. We'd have our demand. Now, if income decreased, demand would decrease. So if something decreases, it shifts to the left. So we go from D to D1, and we'd have a decrease in demand. This is overall demand for a product. This is phase 2. Phase 3 is when we get to aggregate demand. All the demand in all of our economy for all goods and services.